Have you ever felt this way? The feeling of standing in front of the man your heart has chosen, pouring out all your love, sacrificing everything, becoming a better version of yourself every single day just to be seen, to be acknowledged. And yet, in the end, he still turns away. As if your presence was never enough to make him stay. There's a truth that few dare to admit. The deepest pain for a woman doesn't come when love ends, but when she realizes she was never chosen. It's not betrayal, not a breakup, but the cruel silence. The way a man treats you like a temporary option, never a true priority. In those moments, your self-worth begins to tremble. You start to ask yourself, am I not beautiful enough? Am I too old? Am I not interesting enough? Not smart enough? Not attractive enough? And with every question, the answer within only breaks you more. Maybe I'm really not enough. They say time heals everything. But you know, there are wounds that never truly fade. They just learn to hide behind a smile, behind cheerful conversations, behind the busy schedule of a crowded life. But at night, when you're alone with your thoughts, the pain returns, as clear as a scar on your skin. Why haven't I been chosen? The world out there doesn't help much. Dating advice books, empty words of encouragement, articles on how to keep a man, they only make the wound bleed more. People tell you to play hard to get, to be mysterious, to make him jealous, to be more perfect. So you try, you apply all the rules, you drain yourself. But in the end, the same pattern repeats. He chooses someone else, or worse, he chooses no one at all. But there's something hardly anyone tells you, a secret, something small, almost too simple to believe, yet powerful enough to change everything. That secret doesn't lie in your looks, your age, or in playing games. It's not a tactic or a trick. It's a state of being, a presence that a man simply cannot look away from. I remember once, at a small gathering in New York, I noticed a woman in her early 40s. She wasn't the youngest in the room, nor the most striking in appearance. Yet when she walked in, the entire space seemed to shift. Not because of glamorous clothes or loud laughter, quite the opposite. It was the quiet confidence surrounding her. She didn't try to get attention, but she had it. She didn't compete, didn't prove anything, yet she became the center. The man standing next to me whispered, "There's something about her, like a kind of light I can't define." I kept thinking about that moment, and slowly, I realized this secret isn't something everyone has. It's something only a few women carry. A magnetic force that doesn't come from trying harder, but from being whole within. Ironically, most women do the opposite. They try more, give more, pour all their energy into proving they're worthy. But in doing so, they lose the one thing that makes them irreplaceable, their own wholeness. A close friend of mine once broke down in tears after a breakup. She said, "I did everything to make him happy. I was there when he needed me. I cooked, I cleaned. I was the perfect girlfriend. And in the end, he chose a girl who didn't do even a third of what I did." I looked at my friend, silent, because I knew. What drove him away wasn't that she didn't give enough. It was that she gave too much. In that giving, she forgot herself. And no one can truly choose someone who has lost themselves. You see, the pain of not being chosen isn't a punishment. It's a signal. A quiet reminder that you've been heading in the wrong direction. It's like a painful but necessary door, leading you back to your true power. Maybe right now you don't believe it. Maybe you think that to be loved, you have to try harder, be more beautiful, more intelligent, more accomplished. But the truth is different. What makes a man choose you isn't how much you do for him. It's that when he's with you, he feels he's touching something sacred that no words can explain. It's not magic. It's instinct. A primal part of him, buried under the noise of the world, but still alive. And when he meets the right woman, that part awakens. He doesn't analyze. He doesn't weigh options. He just knows he's drawn in, like a sunflower turning toward the sun. And this is where your story begins. Because the secret I'm about to share with you isn't something to memorize or perform. It's not a formula you can copy. It's a journey back to yourself. So you can become the kind of woman a man simply cannot help but choose. Imagine this. If tomorrow you wake up without feeling the need to prove anything, you don't have to pretend, don't have to chase, don't have to hold on. You simply are, and your presence alone is magnetic. Can you imagine that freedom, that lightness? That is the doorway. And the pain you felt, all the times you weren't chosen, all the moments you were treated like a temporary option, they were never your end. They were how life led you here. You've been standing at that door for a long time. The question is, are you ready to walk through it? Because on the other side of that door lies a secret Walter Rizzo spent over 40 years discovering. A secret that explains why some women, without needing to compete, are always the ones who get chosen. There are moments in life when you stop and ask yourself, why was she the one he chose? Why, in a room full of young, beautiful, well-dressed women, did his eyes stop on a girl who seemed so ordinary? We often think that attraction comes from looks, youth, or success. But Walter Rizzo, a psychologist who spent his life studying thousands of relationships, discovered the opposite. The woman who truly gets chosen isn't always the most beautiful, the youngest, or the most accomplished. Instead, she holds something far more elusive, an invisible magnetism. Let me tell you a small story. Years ago, during a trip to Italy, I met a group of women at a cafe in Florence. One girl sat quietly in the corner, not saying much, not trying to draw attention. The others were laughing loudly, talking animatedly, but most of the men in the cafe were unconsciously drawn to her. Not because she stood out in beauty, but because of the way she sat. Calm, natural, as if she had nothing to prove to the world. That is the primal energy Rizzo once described. A presence that men feel before they even know what it is. It's like the smell of the earth after rain. You can't see it or touch it, but it makes you pause, breathe deeply, and remember. Interestingly, science shows that when a man meets a woman, a part of his primal brain is instantly activated. This is not the part that thinks logically or calculates. It's the part rooted in instinct, the same instinct that existed when humans were hunters and gatherers. In that moment, he's not analyzing her job or her appearance by society's standards. He just knows one thing. Something about her pulls him in. But then, the modern world comes in and complicates everything. We grow up in a culture that constantly feeds women the wrong messages. That they must compete, prove their worth, become strong like men to earn respect. Women learn to turn themselves into a more masculine version, competing, controlling, conquering. And in that process, they move further away from the very thing that makes them truly magnetic. Their softness, their presence, their inner fullness. Think back to the last time you tried to impress a man. You adjusted your appearance, measured every word, tried to be just funny enough, just charming enough, just caring enough. But the more you tried, the more distant he became. Why? Because men are not looking for someone to outwit or outmatch them. They are looking for someone who inspires them. There's a subtle but powerful difference here. When you try to impress, you send a message. I need you to choose me. But when you show up in your wholeness, without trying, you send a different message. I have already chosen myself, and if you are brave enough, you may step into this world with me. This difference is what Rizzo calls female magnetic presence. It cannot be faked. It cannot be built with tricks or tactics. It's like the natural scent of a rose. You can buy rose perfume, but the human heart always knows the difference between real and artificial. I know a woman named Claire. She's not the type of woman men usually chase in movies. She's not tall, doesn't have a model figure, and even has a few early lines at the corners of her eyes. But Claire has something most women don't. A deep inner peace in the way she shows up. When she talks to you, she doesn't rush to interrupt, doesn't feel the need to prove herself, doesn't try to be interesting. She's just present, listening, and smiling. And you can feel it clearly. She doesn't need you to feel whole. This awakens a primal reaction in men. When they realize a woman doesn't try to hold on to them, doesn't need them to feel valuable, but is still willing to be there, they start to ask a new question. Am I worthy enough to stand beside her? This is the paradox. The more women chase, the more they lose their magnetism. But when they stop, return to themselves, their magnetism naturally appears. You might think this feels unfair. Why can't we just love and give freely? Why do we need to return to ourselves first? But imagine this. A cup that is empty cannot pour water for anyone. A lamp that hasn't been lit cannot shine for others. If you are not whole within, you will try to fill that emptiness with male attention, and that makes you invisible in their eyes. So instead of asking, how can I make him choose me? Maybe the real question is, how can I choose myself first? When you do, something strange begins to happen. You no longer feel the need to chase anyone. You move through life with a light, free energy, and it's this freedom that draws people in. Men begin to sense there is something about you they cannot own, cannot control. They cannot possess you. They can only hope to walk beside you, and that is real love. Not the love of possession, but the love of choice. By now, you may start to see something clearly. True magnetism does not lie on the outside, but in this primal difference, a feminine presence that makes a man ask, "I've met thousands of women, so why is she the only one I can't stop thinking about?" So, how do you find that state again? That state where you no longer have to compete, no longer have to prove anything, but simply shine as yourself? The answer begins with one powerful first step. You must choose yourself before waiting for anyone else to choose you. There is a paradox that many women don't realize. In order to be chosen, you must first learn to choose yourself. It may sound contradictory, even selfish, but in truth, it is the first and most important condition for becoming a truly magnetic woman. Imagine an ordinary moment. You're sitting in your favorite cafe, looking out at the street. People pass by in a hurry, each carrying an invisible emptiness within. And you ask yourself, what about me? What part of me still feels incomplete? Maybe you once believed that emptiness would disappear if someone truly loved you. That one day the right man would arrive, hold you close, and say, "You are everything to me." That his love would mend all the broken parts inside. But the truth is, love cannot heal what you refuse to heal within yourself. If you don't choose you, you will always be waiting for someone else to choose you. And in that waiting, you slowly lose your worth. I once knew a woman named Susan. She spent her youth caring for her partner, sacrificing all her personal dreams. She once dreamed of becoming a painter, but gave it up to work a stable office job, thinking it would be better for the relationship. 10 years later, that man left her. And in that moment, Susan realized she hadn't just lost love, she had lost herself. Susan never chose herself. She chose love, she chose the man, she chose the role of the perfect girlfriend. But she never chose Susan. And so, when love walked away, she was left with nothing. That was the beginning of her return. Because to be truly chosen, you must first have the courage to choose yourself. To choose what makes your heart come alive. To choose the dreams you once abandoned. To choose the freedom of no longer being a shadow in someone else's life. Choosing yourself doesn't mean rejecting love or becoming cold. On the contrary, it is the most sacred act of all. You are telling the world, "I know my worth, and I will not settle for anything less." It's like standing in front of a mirror in the dark. Instead of searching for validation in someone else's eyes, you look deep into your own. You see the scars, the tears, the moments you fell, but instead of feeling shame, you smile. Because you know all of it shaped a version of you that is whole, a version no one else can replace. Walter Rizzo calls this the journey back to sacred femininity. It's when you stop chasing male approval, stop living like a warrior in a silent battle, and instead, you return to yourself, soft yet strong, gentle yet radiant, whole from within. I remember once, a friend asked me, "But if I choose myself, will anyone still choose me? Will men walk away because I'm no longer bending over backward to please them?" The answer lies in your own experiences. Remember the times you gave too much, lowered yourself too far just to hold on, lost sleep waiting for a message. Did that lead to lasting love? Or just more exhaustion and disappointment? Choosing yourself doesn't push love away. It filters it. Only the men who are truly ready will come closer. Think of a lighthouse. It doesn't chase after ships, doesn't beg for attention. It simply stands tall, shining in the dark, doing what it was born to do. And in that light, the right ships find their way. The ones that lack the courage or the will turn away on their own. You are that lighthouse. And the beauty is, you don't need to change who you are to be chosen. You only need to come home to yourself. Here's something else that's beautiful. Once you begin to choose yourself, the world around you starts to shift. You begin to say no to half-hearted relationships, no to being taken lightly. And every time you say no, you don't lose anything. You create space for something better to enter. This is not an easy path. In fact, it's full of challenges. Because you must face your greatest fear, the fear of being alone. But remember this. Being alone with someone who doesn't value you is far lonelier than being by yourself. And then one day, when you have truly chosen yourself, something deep will change. You no longer need love to validate you. Instead, love arrives as a gift, a connection between two whole souls, not a rescue mission. At that point, a man doesn't choose you because you make him comfortable or because you meet his expectations. He chooses you because he sees a woman who has already chosen herself, a woman who doesn't need him to be complete, but is willing to share her completeness. And that, to him, is simply irresistible. But if the first condition is to choose yourself, then the greatest secret, the one that can transform both love and life, lies in a single word: surrender. And that is when everything begins to change. There is a moment in life that most of us eventually face: the moment of letting go. It comes after long days of struggle, after tears have fallen, after sleepless nights. You no longer have the strength to hold on, no more breath to keep proving your worth. And then, in one weary sigh, you whisper to yourself, enough. At first glance, letting go feels like defeat, like you've lost the battle. But the truth is the complete opposite. Letting go is one of the most courageous acts. When you stop fighting the current and allow yourself to be carried toward where you were always meant to go. Walter Riso once called it surrender, a sacred kind of surrender, not one born from weakness, but from strength. Imagine standing in the middle of a fast-moving river. For years, you've been swimming upstream, believing that only by conquering the current will you be worthy of love, will you be seen. But the more you fight, the more exhausted you become. Your body aches, your soul wears thin. Then one day, you release your grip, relax your limbs, and let the water take you. And strangely, the river does not drown you. It carries you to a different shore, the shore where you were always meant to arrive. Letting go in love is no different. It's not the end of hope. It's the end of illusion. It's not the absence of love. It's the end of trying to force love into a shape it was never meant to hold. I remember a woman named Elena. For years, she clung to a man who never truly chose her. He would come and go, make promises, and disappear. Elena was drained, yet she held on to the fragile hope that if she waited long enough, he would change. One night, after crying until her eyes were swollen, Elena looked into the mirror and didn't recognize herself. She was no longer the radiant, dreamy woman she once was, just a fading shadow, worn thin by waiting. The next day, she let go. Not with a dramatic breakup or loud confrontation, just silence. She stopped texting, she stopped waiting, she stopped explaining. And then, something beautiful happened. It wasn't him who changed, it was Elena. She began to reclaim what she had forgotten, her dreams, her simple joys. That is the power of letting go. It doesn't make you lose yourself. It gives you back to yourself. But why is this so attractive to men? Because when you let go, you send a primal message. I don't need you to survive, but I might want you in my life. That difference is subtle, but incredibly powerful. A man senses that you're not clinging, not trying to possess him. You are like a beautiful island in the ocean. He may dock there, he may stay, but even if he doesn't, the island remains whole. And that wholeness is what draws him in. You see, letting go is not about loss. It's about return. A return to the belief that you deserve love that doesn't have to be begged for. A return to the freedom of no longer basing your value on someone else's attention. A return to the raw, untouched part of you that always knew you were enough, even as a little girl. Of course, letting go isn't easy. We've grown up believing that love must be fought for, that we must sacrifice, prove, and hold on until the end. Letting go sounds like losing. But ask yourself, what exactly are you losing? You can only lose a game if the prize is worth winning. And if the prize is a man who never truly chose you, is that really something worth fighting for? Letting go is how you stop playing the wrong game. It's how you set your pieces down and walk away, ready to find a new playing field where you no longer have to beg to be seen. I once read a quote that stayed with me. When you let go, you don't lose anything. You only lose what was never meant for you. And I believe that is the truth. Imagine waking up one day and realizing you no longer worry about whether he'll call. You no longer wait for a message. You're no longer anxious, decoding every little sign. Instead, you spend your morning doing yoga, reading a book, catching up with friends over coffee. In the evening, you play your favorite music, cook a lovely meal just for yourself. And in that quiet, you realize you're still living. In fact, you're living better. And it is in that moment that men begin to see you differently. Not because you're playing a game, but because your energy has truly shifted. You're no longer radiating lack, you're radiating fullness. And that kind of fullness is impossible to resist. The interesting thing is, letting go also filters out the wrong men. The immature ones, the ones who only wanted to use you, will disappear. They cannot survive in your light. But the man who is ready, the one who is capable of real love, he will come closer. Because he knows that to be with a woman who has let go, he must approach with honesty, not with tricks. Letting go doesn't make you passive. On the contrary, it gives you the greatest power of all, the power to choose. You are no longer waiting to be rescued. You choose yourself. You choose your life. And from that place of strength, you are finally free to choose love. And to see the true power of letting go, there's no better example than a real story. The story of a woman named Maria, who went from 10 years of desperate holding on to one radiant day when she found herself again, and love came knocking once more. To help you truly understand the power of letting go, let me tell you Maria's story. A real, ordinary story, but one that reflects the journey of so many women. Maria is 45. When I first met her, I saw in her eyes a light that had gone out. The kind of light you only find in someone who has poured all their love into a place that never gave it back. For 10 long years, Maria had only one goal: to do whatever it took to win her ex-husband back. He had left after 15 years of marriage to chase a younger woman, full of energy and excitement. For Maria, that moment hit like a knife to the chest. Her world collapsed, but instead of accepting it, she believed she had to fight to get him back, no matter the cost. Can you imagine what those 10 years were like? Maria became a shadow of herself. She never said no to him. Whatever he needed, she was there. When he had financial trouble, she helped. When he was sick, she cared for him. When he was lonely, she listened. But when he was happy with someone else. And Maria stood quietly on the sidelines, hoping one day he would realize she was the one who truly loved him. Everyone else could see what was happening, but Maria couldn't. She was trapped in a loop of hope and heartbreak. Every time he returned, her heart would light up, believing maybe this time would be different. But soon enough, he would leave again, and Maria would wait and give and slowly erase herself all over again. Until one day, it was a rainy afternoon. Maria said she was sitting alone in her small house, looking out the window. He had just stopped by briefly, borrowed some money, promised to see her again soon. But Maria already knew, in a few weeks, he would disappear again, like he always did. She looked into the mirror in her living room, and for the first time in years, Maria truly saw herself. Not the face she glanced at every morning, but a stranger. Tired, drained, eyes that had forgotten how to smile. She was no longer the Maria who loved to paint, who laughed loudly when her favorite song played, who once dreamed of traveling the world. She had become just a shadow, clinging to a love that didn't love her back. In that moment, a deep silence filled her. And then, a simple truth rose up in her mind. I can't live like this anymore. That day, Maria let go. It wasn't a dramatic breakup. No final message. No tearful confrontation. No blame. Just a quiet decision. Stop. She stopped calling. Stopped texting. Stopped waiting. She cut the invisible threads that had held her down for a decade. And in the space that opened up, she began to find herself again. Maria bought paint tubes she hadn't touched in over 20 years. In the mornings, instead of waiting for a call, she sat at her easel and let colors spill across the canvas. The first paintings were shaky, uncertain, but with each stroke, a small joy returned. She started to travel, alone. Paris, Lisbon, even small towns she had never heard of before. In every place, Maria met new people, heard new stories, and realized the world was so much bigger than the tiny loop she had been stuck in. She reconnected with friends, not for sad conversations about why he hadn't come back, but for coffee full of laughter, discussions about books, movies, and dreams. And then something unexpected happened. As Maria became more whole, as her life grew more vibrant, that man began to reappear. But this time, not to borrow money or be comforted. He came with a different look in his eyes, the look of someone who finally saw what he had once overlooked. One evening, he knocked on her door, hesitant. He said he couldn't stop thinking about her, that with her, he felt a peace he couldn't find anywhere else. He wanted to come back. At this point, you might think, that's wonderful. So finally, Maria's love story has a happy ending. But the truth is even more beautiful than that. Maria smiled, but she didn't immediately say yes, because she was no longer the woman from 10 years ago, ready to give everything just to keep him. She was the new Maria, the woman who had chosen herself first. And because of that, she knew that whether he returned or not no longer defined her worth. That is the secret of letting go. You're not letting go of love. You're letting go of attachment. And when you do, you become so radiant that love comes looking for you. But this time, you're not desperate. You're free to choose. Maria chose to give him another chance, but this time, from a place of equality. If he valued her, love would last. If not, she still had a brilliant life waiting for her. That's the difference. When a woman lets go, she's no longer afraid of loss. She knows that true love never comes from begging. It comes from fullness within. Maria's story is not an exception. So many women live their lives stuck in cycles of sacrifice and grasping until they let go and return to themselves. And every time that happens, they become a brighter version of who they are. And if the love is real, it will always find its way back. But how do you stay in this state? How do you make sure letting go isn't just a moment, but becomes the foundation of your life? The answer lies in 3 pillars, 3 keys that keep a woman shining from within. Maria found herself again through letting go. But for that transformation to become more than a fleeting moment, she needed something solid to stand on. Old habits, old fears, or even moments of loneliness can still pull us back into familiar loops. Letting go cannot be just a single act. It must become a way of life. And to sustain it, a woman needs 3 inner pillars holding her up from within. The first pillar is emotional independence. Imagine you are a small boat on the open sea, letting the waves decide your direction. When he smiles, you feel worthy. When he's silent, you feel invisible. Your life sways with every reaction from someone else. But once you learn to stand tall, you stop being the boat. You become the mountain. People may come and go, stay or leave, but you remain, whole, unmoved. Emotional independence doesn't mean you don't need love. It means you don't place your life's breath in anyone's hands. You may want a man, but you don't need him in order to live. The second pillar is conscious presence. Have you ever sat next to someone and felt they weren't truly there? They nod, they smile, but their eyes are elsewhere. We often do the same in love. When we're with someone, our minds race to the future. Will he stay? Am I enough? Or we drift back to the past. He hurt me. He walked away in silence. And just like that, the present moment is stolen. Conscious presence means that when you're with him, you are truly there, with your eyes, your attention, your genuine smile. And when he's not around, you still live fully with yourself, reading a book, walking through the afternoon light, laughing out loud with friends. You are no longer the woman frozen in front of her phone screen, counting the hours for a message. You are the woman who is alive, with or without anyone beside her. And then, the most important pillar, unconditional self-love. This is the hardest of all, because we've been raised with measurements. If you're smart, you get praise. If you're pretty, you get noticed. If you're successful, you're worthy. From a young age, we're taught that even self-love must be earned. I'll love myself when I'm perfect. But the truth is, you've always been worthy, even in your imperfection. Unconditional self-love is when you look into the mirror and whisper, I love you. Scars, stumbles, and tears included. And the strange thing is, when you love yourself like that, others feel it too. A man might be drawn to your beauty, but what makes him stay is the energy of a woman who truly loves herself. When these 3 pillars come together, you become a flame. Not a blinding spotlight for show, but a warm, steady fire that's impossible to ignore. The men who are not yet ready will lose their way in that light. They'll quietly disappear. But the man who is brave, grounded, and sincere will be drawn to it. Because he knows that to be with you, he cannot play the old games. He must love with honesty, or not at all. Maria discovered these 3 pillars in her own journey. She no longer trembled in response to her ex-husband's actions. She began living each moment, painting, connecting, traveling alone. And she loved herself, not because anyone praised her, but because she finally understood her own worth. From there, Maria's life didn't just change in love. Her career flourished. Her friendships deepened, and most importantly, she found peace in being alone. And this is only the beginning. Because when a woman truly masters these three pillars, her light doesn't stay confined to herself. It begins to radiate, touching everyone around her, and sparking a transformation far greater than she ever imagined. When a woman has walked through pain, learned to let go, and built strong inner foundations, her life transforms in a way that cannot be reversed. This change is not loud, not a dramatic revolution on the outside. It spreads quietly, like ripples on water, from her heart, touching every part of her life. One ordinary morning, she wakes up and no longer feels that familiar heaviness. Her phone still rests silently on the table. No buzz, no messages. But instead of panic or disappointment, she smiles. Because now, her worth no longer depends on the words flashing across a screen. She makes herself a cup of coffee, plays an old song she once forgot, and dances a few steps in her living room. That's all it takes, and joy returns. That is the first fruit of her journey. Freedom in the soul. With that freedom, love becomes something entirely different. The man beside her no longer has to play the role of a savior. He is not her anchor. He doesn't bear the burden of filling a void. He simply gets to be himself because she is already whole. And that wholeness makes him want to stay, want to choose her, not out of duty, but desire. Love is no longer a game of lack, but the meeting of two free souls. As a woman changes from the inside, she also becomes more discerning. Half-hearted relationships, emotionally immature men, shallow romances, they no longer have a place. At first, this shedding can feel unsettling, as though the world suddenly grows quiet. But she soon realizes this is not a loss, it's a gift. Better to be alone and radiant than shrink beside someone just to stay. And in that space, what is truly worthy begins to find its way in. Do you know the most beautiful part? When a woman returns to herself, her light doesn't just illuminate her own life, it touches others. Friends, co-workers, even strangers feel the shift. A friend might look at her and think, if she can let go, if she can live for herself, why can't I? Then someone else finds the courage to leave a toxic relationship, to chase an abandoned dream. That ripple even reaches men. Someone who once took her for granted may suddenly realize he let go of something rare. Another who once played games now finds himself humbled by her quiet brilliance. And new men, when they arrive, don't see a woman longing to be filled. They see a woman already full, already choosing with care. They know that to be with her, they must come with honesty. And it doesn't stop at love. The transformation reaches into her work and family. She no longer works to be validated. She works because she believes in her value. She doesn't compete out of insecurity. She celebrates others, knowing their light does not dim her own. At home, her children learn a powerful lesson. That worth isn't in grades or achievements, but in the fullness of being who you are. Then comes the greatest fruit of all, a new kind of faith. A quiet but unwavering belief that she deserves a love she doesn't have to beg for. A love that will arrive at the right time, with someone who chooses her not for perfection, but for the truth of who she is. And this belief gives her a lightness she has never known. Picture this. One afternoon, you sit alone in a cafe. No fancy dress, no performance. Just you, calm, natural, present. A man walks in. His eyes stop on you, and for a split second, something in him wakes up. Not because you try to be seen, but because your energy speaks louder than words. He can't explain it, but he knows he wants to come closer. And you smile, not because you need him to stay, but because you are no longer afraid of being left. You know that if he's ready, he will stay. And if not, you'll continue to shine, like a lighthouse, steady and bright, guiding yourself and others who are meant to find you. A woman like this will never again accept the scraps of love. She knows her worth. She knows she is enough. And because of that, true love comes, not halfway, not with conditions, not in disguise. When you stop chasing love and start living it, love begins to chase you. When you stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself instead, you become the kind of woman who cannot be forgotten. And this is not just Maria's story. It's not a story for someone else. It's your story too. Because deep inside you, there's a whole version of yourself waiting to awaken. A version that doesn't fear loss, that doesn't need to play a role, that doesn't have to beg. A version that knows, I have always been enough. And Once you see that truth, you cannot unsee it. And when that happens, your whole life will change. When you stop chasing love and start living it, love begins to chase you. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.